Thanks for coming in, Mr. Lewis. It's good to have you here.
Thank you. Honored to be here.
Well, let's start with the number one issue with the voters, and that's a crime situation in Albuquerque and really the state, but certainly the city accounts for most of it. You and your opponent both want to hire more police. Recently, though, you have been running some ads that are attributing quotes to your opponent, Mr. Keller, regarding judges and the crime situation, and the quote has shown not to be accurate. He never said what is in the ad, and you were asked about it by KOB and asked if it was a dishonest bit of campaigning, and your answer was, that's for you to decide. Tell us what you meant by that.
Well, there were quotes in the original ad. We took the quotes off, did that pretty quickly. But the bottom line is that everyone knows the judges in Albuquerque as catch and release judges. And Tim has said over and over that he would not blame the judges. I want to take responsibility for that. Judges that are, everybody knows them as catch and release judges that are dumping dangerous people back on the streets of Albuquerque. Any mayor that's not concerned about that is fooling themselves. We need a mayor that'll take responsibility and recognize, help people understand in this city that there was this reform to the criminal court system. The idea was to reduce the jail population, and they sure did. They put together programs like pretrial services. They decimated the bail bond industry, and now we have judges that are making decisions that are dumping dangerous people on the streets of Albuquerque. And so I want to not only point that out, I want to rate the judges, I want to score the judges and help people understand the decisions that are being made that are making our streets a whole lot more dangerous.
Well, certainly I think everybody is in favor of transparency, which is what that would be. And I think rating the judges is probably not a bad idea in terms of the public perception of it. However, the mayor actually has no jurisdiction over the judges. It's a constitutional amendment issue that the voters passed in a referendum, and it's also a rulemaking thing that the mayor cannot affect. So what exactly would such a checklist do to reduce crime in the here and now?
You know, I mean, obviously I'm not a Supreme Court judge. And if I was an attorney and I was saying the things that I've been saying on the campaign trail about judges, I'd probably be before the state bar right now. But I'm not. I'm an elected official. I'm running for mayor. I'm a citizen of this city. So I'm going to talk about the things that are hurting this city right now. And so we need a mayor that's going to stand up and do that. Even if we just make people aware. And I can tell you this too, that just the attention that my campaign has put on this issue, the tide is already beginning to turn. There are more conversations that are going on in Santa Fe now and among the Supreme Court judges and the legislators right now. The governor came out last week and proposed a reversal of the bail bond decisions that were made. And so a mayor and certainly a candidate has already affected this issue that's making our streets a whole lot more dangerous. And so, but what are we going to do? Now, I have a 10-page crime plan, and that crime plan spells out very specifically what we're going to do, how we're going to do it, what our police department is going to look like, and how we're going to pay for it. So very specific and very detailed. We're going to have new leadership at APD.
I've been a big critic. Give me one specific off that plan.
Sure. I've been a big critic of APD leadership, so we're going to have new leadership in APD. We're going to pay for 1,200 officers in our city. $15 million that I will put into a mid-year budget substitute. I'll propose it as mayor. The mayor has to do that. 9 city councilors are not going to take a status quo budget and make those kind of changes to the budget. So we have to have a priority in our budget on public safety. So 1,200 police officers we'll get to, and here's how we'll do it. By putting the priority in our budget on public safety to the Albuquerque Police Department. We're going to do raises and competitive pay at 5 years, at sergeant, at lieutenant. Make sure we have a competitive pay so we're not losing officers to other agencies, which is what is happening right now. And we're going to attract lateral officers from places like Dallas and Denver and other agencies. In Dallas, that police department just gutted their pension program. We have one of the best pensions in the country at APD. So we'll use that along with competitive pay to attract good officers put them through a shortened academy, and then get them on the streets of Albuquerque responding to calls. My plan also talks about how we structure APD, with 60% of our officers in field services responding to calls, answering calls, 30% in our detective bureau that are gathering evidence, investigating crimes, and showing up in court where our officers, the judges want them to be.
Speaking of the police, your opponent has the backing of the police union. You have said in the last couple of days, and maybe more often than that it was a backroom deal with the union leadership, and that the rank and file supports you, not what the union came out for. Now, as mayor, you're going to have to work with that union. And this seems like you may be getting off a little bit on the wrong foot. And I just want to know, what is your plan going forward for working with the union instead of pushing back against them?
I've worked with those unions for the last 8 years. And we have a great relationship. They know, those union leaders know how much I've done for them, how hard I've worked as a city councilor to make sure they had the funding that they need. So they know it, but the rank and file also know it too. And the fact is for a candidate to say that the police department backs me because they were endorsed by the APOA is just absolutely false. There were 12 people in that room, 12 people that voted out of 820 police officers. 12 people that were a part of the union leaders that voted to endorse him. And so today's to say that
membership have to ratify that, or did they not get a say?
No, this is a political PAC that endorsed him, along with thousands of other dollars in political PACs that gave some to the tune of $20,000 to $25,000 to a slush fund that Tim Keller has. That now he's being charged for coordinating with. In fact, he's got 3 violation charges, 3 ethics violation charges right now against him.
Yes, I know, and a couple of them were brought by one of your fellow candidates who is
They're before the
now
Board
out
of
the
Ethics.
race.
The Board of
Yeah,
Ethics didn't even
understand.
have to see it, but they chose to actually hear those ethics charges. And there's certainly a lot of evidence of coordination.
You are running ads, well, you are not running ads. Ads are running against your opponent, calling him soft on crime, and I've heard you actually use those words as well. But those ads are not being paid for by the police union or even by an anti-crime group. They're being paid for by an out-of-state developer who wants the Santolina development to go through. That's a 21 square mile for development on the southwest side of I-40. It's going to take a lot of taxpayer support. It's going to take a lot of water. And the mayor is going to sit on the Albuquerque-Bernalillo Water Utility Authority. That would be you if you're elected. And opponents to Santolina say, look, Albuquerque needs all the water it can preserve and get. It also needs other resources that might go to that development. We have a lot of infill that we need to take care of. Where do you stand on that development?
Well, it's an interesting lead into the question as far as the motives of that PAC with those kinds of attack ads on Tim. Look, the fact is, I've said that, and people know that Tim is soft on crime. His record shows it. He's put criminals in the city before law-abiding citizens.
But where do you stand on the Santolina?
Well, we're going to get there. You started the question with talking about
because
these ads and
I've
what
also
Tim's
been
accused
told
of.
that,
So you could separate the
Yeah.
idea of water and the need for water and development on the west side with the fact that Tim is corrupt. This is a corrupt partisan
no,
Santa
I'm
Fe
not
politician.
separating the water. What I'm saying is that's an out-of-state PAC that is supporting attack ads. And I have not heard you speak out against the attack ads. In fact, you just spoke.
Absolutely not. I'm not going to speak out against attack ads because those attack ads are true. People may not like how they're done, but they are absolutely true on the issue of putting criminals before law-abiding citizens in this city. I mean, Tim voted, and I'll get to the Santolina. Absolutely, I'd love to talk about that. But Tim voted to keep the city of Albuquerque from making decisions on where sex offenders could live.
Yes, he did.
He
It
removes
was
those
a
restrictions.
It was a statewide.
SB 184, it was statewide, yeah. So at the very least, what he did was say Santa Fe should decide on this, not the city of Albuquerque. This is a partisan politician who spent a lot of time in Santa Fe voting with his party.
Well,
And this is a nonpartisan race here in Albuquerque. We're talking about decisions that are good for the city, and first and foremost, protecting the people of this city, protecting women and children. Not dangerous and disgusting bills like SB 184.
where do you stand on Santa Elena, quickly?
I support Santa Elena because I believe that it's going to create jobs. I've represented the West Side. I mean, we have lack of infrastructure, a lot of R1 homes, but no services. And so, to the degree that Santa Elena and developments like that are sustainable, that they create good infrastructure and they create jobs, that's a good thing for the West Side.
Well, right now they say if we build the houses, the jobs will come. And usually it's the other way around, but we're going to need to move on that.
Well, we build the infrastructure. You got to build infrastructure, and we got to be proactive. And planned developments like Santa Elena are one of the ways that we do that, rather than just a bunch of shoddy homes that are put out on the West Side. I could show you some neighborhoods on the West Side that shouldn't have been built. Santa Elena's pretty. There's got a lot of good foresight in there, building good infrastructure and creating jobs.
Taking water. Recently,
everybody takes water.
Everybody
if
takes
you live in
water.
Albuquerque, you take water.
You're right.
So I mean, why look at the West Side and create this divide over the West Side and the East Side?
I'm just telling you.
We need water, but they don't.
No, I'm saying actually it's inner Albuquerque. Many people are opposed to it because they say we need infrastructure, we need infill. Mm-hmm. And that's not coming, but we do need to move on. I want to talk about what the voters have done recently. And they defeated a city ordinance that would have required businesses to let their employees accrue sick leave, 1 hour for 30 hours worked. You said at the time that it was defeated, you had been against it. If you're elected mayor, you'll be entitled to sick leave, as are all the city employees. Would you support any kind of sick leave ordinance? Was it a problem with the ordinance as put forth? I know it was quite complicated and long, or are you just opposed to mandated sick leave in general?
Well, I mean, first for the city, I mean, people that choose to work for the city of Albuquerque and go through a competitive process to do that, those are some of the benefits that come along with working there, as is some of the benefits that go along with working with many of our private businesses in the city. So there's choices that are made. I wouldn't say that it's not an entitlement of people that work for the city of Albuquerque. It's one of the benefits that is offered by the city of Albuquerque, as well as by many private businesses. And the fact is that most companies in this city provide great benefits to their employees. And those that don't, there's ways that city government can work to help families and to help people. Certainly we lift people out of poverty by helping job creators thrive, not by mandating more regulations on them and telling them how to run their business. And this issue became about several things. One is a very complicated bill, 7 pages, that was just absolutely a terrible bill as written. That's what was on the ballot.
Would you support a less complicated bill?
No, absolutely
you would not.
No. The reason why is because there's over 45,000 people that said they didn't want that bill. So if it's something that's proposed,
defeat,
if it's something that's proposed, but it was defeated. If it was proposed by the city council, certainly I'm going to consider anything that's proposed by the council and that comes up. But this is not a bill that I'm not going to fight for mandated regulations on small businesses that create the jobs in our city. This is not about business and families. This is about families and people that are going to be hurt by those kinds of job-killing regulations. And that's just one. There are so many of those that come from outside the state, from faraway places, and they always have somebody that's going to carry the water.
You actually said that that ordinance came from people out of New York. Do you have evidence for that?
I absolutely do. These are organizations that have done this in cities all over this country. The exact same language, the exact same bill. This was not written by people in Albuquerque that were concerned about families in Albuquerque. This is a far left movement that came from outside of this state, And so there's always going to be people, city councilors and others that carry their water. And there's many of them that come across City Hall like that
Well,
too.
speaking of ordinances, there is an ordinance before the council right now, and you're still on the council, about pawn shops. To tighten up on pawn shops because of the problem of fencing stolen goods. And as we know, we're #1 in auto theft. We're very high on other kinds of crimes that are fed by stolen goods. What do you think of that ordinance? Well, for the first place, they want to make it where the money is not changing hands at the time the goods are pawned, but they have to mail them a check after 3 days. Is that going to do anything to cut down on crime, cut down on stolen goods?
It's a terrible ordinance, is what it is. What's proposed before the council right now is terrible. It's going to hurt pawn shops. It's going to put many of them out of business. It's going to hurt gold and silver exchanges. And you know what's interesting about this is that those are legitimate businesses that help people get out of debt, help people make a water bill payment, help people buy formula for their babies, the food for their kids. And to be able to say, hey, and what happens a lot of times is people will gather up some of the things and they'll pawn it. They'll pawn it. They'll give it to a pawn shop for a week, and they'll be able to buy food for their kids, and they get that back. Most of the exchanges are pawns, not just selling
That's
goods
right.
that are stolen.
So
this is a terrible
you're
bill.
against it.
Absolutely.
All
I know
right.
Tim's for it. Tim's
Well,
has talked about I don't know if you got that from our debate on
I
Sunday
want
night.
to talk
but
about what
certainly-
you're for, because we'll talk
Well, he said
to him
he said that
separately.
I should vote for it, and I'm certainly not going to vote for it.
Okay.
It sounds like he would.
Now, let's move to a big issue for this state and certainly for the city of Albuquerque, and that is the immigration issue, which Trump is cracking down on immigration, as we know. There's a lot of talk about sanctuary cities. We are not a sanctuary city, but it's kind of a moving target in terms of the definition of a sanctuary city. What would you say about that issue? Would you be in favor of diverting city resources to enforce federal law?
I'm in favor of the procedure that we have right now, which makes us not a sanctuary city. We're very different on this, and it's very clear. And I don't believe it is a moving target. I believe that my opponent wants to make it a moving target and wants to have it both ways. But the fact is, he's for sanctuary cities, and Albuquerque will be a sanctuary city if Tim's elected.
What do we have
no
now, though?
coordination.
You said you are in favor of what we have now.
We have-
Tell our viewers
Absolutely.
what that is.
Yeah, it's a great policy. In fact, it's sensitive to it has a sensibility to it. It also protects people's constitutional rights, but it gives us a proper relationship with the federal government, whose job is to enforce immigration.
Does
So
it-
we
you-
allow ICE agents to be in our transfer center,
Okay.
as opposed to to Bernalillo
Now-
County or sanctuary cities, which actually hinder and do not communicate whatsoever with illegals that might be in that jail.
The U.S. Justice Department has already said that they intend to punish cities that do not actually divert resources to ICE enforcement by withdrawing funds for other kinds of law enforcement. How would you react as mayor if the Justice Department did in fact pull some funds because you didn't want to put your cops on the street to enforce the national immigration laws?
I think we're complying with that right now. From what I understand of it, we're complying with that. And I'll make calls as mayor. We'll meet with the Department of Justice. I'll meet with Jeff Sessions, and we'll sit down and we'll talk about Albuquerque's relationship. I'll meet with the DA and the U.S. Attorney in New Mexico, and we'll sit down and we'll talk about the proper relationship that the city of Albuquerque should have with the federal government when it comes to immigration. I think we got a good start to it right now. But if you want Albuquerque to be a sanctuary city, then Tim Keller's your guy.
Okay, we're almost out of time. There's so much more we could talk about, but I want to give you a last shot of what is your overall vision for the city. What would you like to see happen in the short run? And if elected, what would you like to see by the end of your term that we don't have now and we need?
In the short term, I'd like for people to start feeling safe. I mean, for this to be the worst place to be a criminal, And for people to start feeling like, you know, I don't have to walk out to my car and wonder if it's going to be broken into. I don't have to go to my business today and when I'm unlocking the doors and realize that it's been ransacked, that it's been broken into, and worry about all the money that I got to spend and you know, because of that. I want to have a city where people feel safe, where people are confident in their police department, they feel like we're proactive, that there's a city government that's run well. I want people to say that that was the best mayor that we've ever had. That was the most effective and ethical mayor that we've ever had. That's my goal. I don't need the job. I mean, I want the job because I want to see this city thrive.
And
so
what
we're going to
about
be a safe city,
long term?
a fair place to do business, a thriving city, a city where we expand our job base, where everybody who wants a high-paying, you know, job and a career that they want, they find their best choices right here in Albuquerque, so that they don't have to go and think that, you know, young people that think that, well, you know, maybe I'll get some better opportunities in Phoenix or other parts of the country. Long-term goal, we want kids in our city to go, I'm going to get my best opportunity for a career, to raise a family, to live in a great place like Albuquerque, because the choices I have, the best choices I have are right here in our city.
Dan Lewis, candidate for mayor, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.